Welcome to the Casual Shooters Podcast, your premier podcast for the casual shooter. I am your host, David Riddle. My guest this week is a renowned mental trainer and hypnosis meditation expert. She's here today to teach me how to take over the world. Unfortunately, I don't think there are enough years left in her life and my life combined for her to be able to teach me how to do that. So you guys are all safe. Now, she's worked with Olympic athletes, PGA Tour professionals, and corporate professionals, to name a few. So we're going to talk all kinds of mental training today. If you would, join me in welcoming to the show Miss Dawn Grant. How are you, Dawn?
Boss. I'm good, thank you. Thanks for the great introduction.
Oh, you're welcome. If you would, take a moment and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so Dawn Grant. I don't always like to start with my career as the definition of who I am. So let's see, I'm in my mid-50s. I'm married as of this year. I've married a guy in the competitive shotgun shooting industry. Have 2 kids that are adults, have 3 dogs, and I own a shotgun club in Northeast Florida called Amelia Shotgun Sports. But I've been a mental trainer, hypnotherapist for 25 years and degreed in psychology and been in the self-help world my entire life. And I absolutely love helping people. So the better I figure out how to do that, the more happy that I am. So I've come up with a lot of great things, and and a lot of that has just taken off in the competitive shooting world, just by word of mouth. Because I think because of the nature of the sport, and how everybody's like a good old boy, buddies, and they're shooting together and they're talking together. It's very different than I'd say like the golf world, as you said in the introduction. I've worked with PGA and LPGA Tour pros, and that's a very singular sport, right? So
Yeah.
as soon as this started happening, or I started working with competitive clay shooters, it just took over my life. And then next thing you know, I'm owning a shotgun club as well. So yeah.
Okay. I guess that's part of the trade-off. Okay, I'll help you guys and I'll buy a shotgun place. All right, we're good.
It just worked out that way.
So, Dawn, I like to start off with some icebreakers to kind of get the hard drive spinning, makes the rest of the conversation go a little smoother.
Mm-hmm.
All right. First, these are going to be like some of the hardest questions you're going to get today, too.
Okay.
Because they're going to make you think. Favorite movie?
Oh my God. I'm a
I
sassy
told you.
girl. I like romantic, get my mind off of all the analyzing I do all day. Oh gosh, can I even think of the name of it? What is it? Something like 21 First Dates. That one's pretty funny. Romantic comedies. I'm typical rom-com girl.
Is that with, shoot, I can't think of his name.
I'm not good with names, but he's super funny. And he's dating the girl. Well, they're married, actually, I think. And she had like amnesia. Every day she woke up and he had to try to convince her.
I think it's actually 50 First Dates. I think
probably that's probably
yeah.
More
I think
like
it's 50 First Dates. Yeah, I mean, why Adam Sandler? That's who it is.
Yeah. Anything like that. That's the first one that came to my mind.
All right. Now here's one that may be a little tougher for you. Favorite book?
Oh,
I know you've read a couple of books.
I have. Well, my book. No, I'm not going to go there. It's the one that I refer a lot of people to. Well, now I've got a few going through my mind, but Biology of Belief. Biology of Belief. I end up recommending it to a lot of my clients as part of my program, asking people to read it. So yeah, Biology of Belief. I'm obsessed again with, self-improvement and learning and understanding. I'm also obsessed with spirituality. So anything related to like spirit, near-death experiences. What else is there? just anything like, do we really go on? Are we really more than this physical body? But biology of belief, he connects invisible thoughts, because your thoughts are invisible, their energy, and how they affect the cells of your body, your biology. So biology of belief, and ultimately, if how you think, if you're thinking in a healthy, constructive way, then you can have a healthy body. And but if you're thinking in a destructive, unhealthy way, then it affects the cells of your body. Actually, sends them into fight or flight response or stress response, and then chronic disease and all sorts of stuff happens. So, yeah,
So don't
that's
be negative.
easier said than done, which is why
I
people
know.
hire me.
Okay. If you could go back in time and spend a day with one person, who would it be? And if you say the Who at Woodstock, you get bonus points.
So way back in time. Oh, I was thinking of my kids when they were babies at first, but yeah, way back. I love historically accurate his mini series and all. So anything from like King Henry VIII. Um, God, except I don't want my head chopped off. I don't want them to pull off my
Yeah.
limbs either. But I don't know. Back in those era, I think that's a really cool time.
So no Freud?
No, I don't know. He's a little weird. But yeah, that's a good
A
question.
lot of them were.
How about Mesmer? Yeah, Mesmer. That's where mesmerized came from, and hypnosis in general. But that wasn't as far back.
Someone once said Da Vinci, and I was like, "Whoa, that's brilliant. That would be an
Yeah,
interesting conversation."
yeah, yeah. No, I'm more into like historical stuff, thinking it's so fascinating.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Okay. Final question. What's your favorite success story?
Oh, well, that has to be where I helped Vijay Singh win $13 million in less than a month. That was pretty cool.
What?
That's definitely my go-to as far as really cool successes. Yeah, he had back in the this time around 2008, Vijay Singh was one of the top PGA Tour pros. He was usually in the top 5 next to Tiger Woods or Phil Mickelson, but at this particular time it was actually really well documented. He had 18 months of not winning, and it was causing him like great anxiety and panic. It was all related to his putting. And I knew his caddy. So his caddy said, "Hey, I know somebody that can help you with anxiety." Because he was like shaking, heart palpitations, numbness.
Wow.
And so that was the opening to the door. And they were going into the FedEx Cup Championship Series, which is a 4 tournaments playoff series. And, obviously they just keep funneling
Yep.
down till they have a winner. And it was the week before. I worked with him because he lived in Ponte Vedra, which is just 2 towns south of me. And so I went to his home in Ponte Vedra, worked with him over several days, and both what I call mental training. And then also I made him a hypnosis audio. And he had said to me, well, as I said, it was well documented, these putting issues. And I'm like, well, if you could have anything, what would it be? And he said, it'd be the best putter in the world. And I was like, I remember literally sitting on his couch thinking, that's a tall order for somebody who's been playing so crappy for a year and a half. But then my next thought was, well, he is a PGA Tour pro and he has been at the top for a while. So, okay, all right, let's go with it. So in the hypnosis, I gave a lot of positive affirmation suggestions all around things I had learned about him. But then I kept throwing in there, best putter in the world, best putter in the world, over and over again. And it made it believable by giving information around that and proof and everything. I was watching him on the Golf Channel, and I could tell leading into the cut that he still wasn't certain if he was going to make the cut. He made it, and I could see on his face he believed again. And by that weekend, he had won on a putt in the third playoff hole against Sergio Garcia. And everybody was already congratulating Sergio because they all knew VJ had a putting problem. But VJ beat him. And they interviewed him live. And they said, how do you explain this sudden turnaround? And he, without blinking in the camera with a microphone, said, well, I'm the best putter in the world. And
Wow.
they just looked at each other like, what in the world? And they went back into the set and they were like, how do you explain that? Well, he must have, saw a sports psychologist or something. And anyways, he went and he won the second week as well. And he broke a course record for putting. And the way that the point system was set up over that 4 weeks is he just actually had to show up and finish 18 holes on the third and the fourth because he had done so well in the first two. And he did. And he won the whole FedEx Cup championship and $13 million.
Wow. That's a huge payday right there.
I know, right?
Goodness. That's like an NBA regular season game payday.
Yes. Yeah. It's outrageous, isn't it? How much
it is outrageous.
It really
yeah,
is.
It is outrageous.
Interesting priorities we have as a country or world. I think the whole world is into sports.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, well, thank you for going through those icebreakers. Now that we're all warmed up and ready to chat, I was thinking, I was like, most kids grow up, wanting to be a doctor or an astronaut or a professional athlete. At what point did you decide, you know what, I want to be a hypnotherapist and mental trainer?
Yeah. Well, I did grow up knowing I wanted to help people. Like I really did. I don't know, whatever that was. Maybe it was my own crappy childhood or something, but I just knew I wanted to help children particularly. And my first job, even before going to college, was at a residential treatment facility for kids.
Oh.
Yeah, and it was a pretty high level barbed wire all around. They had all done pretty traumatic things at some point in their lives. And I loved it. And then I went to school thinking I was going to be like a therapist, a children's therapist, a family therapist. I ended up getting a bachelor's degree in psychology and not wanting to go on to be a therapist. I didn't want to kind of pigeonhole myself in that way. But I came out and immediately got a job at a local mental health facility as a children's case manager. And to be blunt and honest, that first year, I was not happy with the system. I thought this is not what I thought I was signing up for. The kids were being medicated to get them just to be right. They were getting case managers, psychiatrists, psychologists, behaviorists, in school, like assistants, big brothers, big sisters. As a case manager, I connected them with all these services and then I would monitor. And some of them would make some progress, but a lot of them wouldn't. And then one day, a mother came in that it was a lower income, lower educated family. And she just was calling that boy every single name in the book and yelling at him. And I thought, he's never going to improve. There, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's what he's living with. And I just thought, I don't see how this is ever going to get better in the way the system was. Not that I have a solution. So I went to my supervisor, and fortunately he understood and he let me do a lot of different things. Did some in school group substance abuse counseling or group chatting and all different things, and big brothers, big sisters. But anyways, in my own time, I've been pretty obsessed with understanding just spirituality. Like people say, mind, body, spirit, or Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or my soul. And I thought, what is that? And does it really exist? And how can I figure it out? And I became kind of a PI. I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience. I'm like, do we really have a life after death? And what is that? And yeah, I've been obsessed with trying to understand that. And that's how I learned about hypnosis, because a friend that was moving. She's like, I know you love all this really, spiritual type stuff. And I have books and books of it, and I don't really want them anymore. So here. And there was one book in there called Many Lives, Many Masters. And it happened to be about a psychologist who had tried everything with this one client and over years of weekly therapy. And she wasn't really having much progress. So he had taken a weekend class in hypnosis, and he had never really practiced it. And he thought, well, I'll give it a shot, So he did. And he immediately started seeing results. And that was all I needed to. I read that book as fast as I could. I couldn't get enough of it. And I immediately started calling around the country trying to find out how I could get training and where to go. And within about a month, I was in training. It was a 100-hour program. I found what was considered the best instructor in the world at that time, and I did it. And I don't know, it's been a path that's just kind of called me. And at the time I was married, I called my husband from that training program and said, I'm opening an office. Will you find me one so I can get started as soon as I get home? And he did. And that was the beginning. That was 2001.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, have you determined if there's life after this?
I don't know how woo-woo you want to get on here. I'm always cautious, and I don't even freak everybody out. But I think most people believe that, kind of like I said, mind, body, spirit, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I think that, we dabble around it. A lot of people believe in the soul, but maybe haven't studied it. But yes, I am 1,000% convinced at this point that I am a spiritual being having a physical experience. That spirit is what we call our soul. It's energy. It's not it's not like physical, like you touch. It's
Right.
energy. And, if you start throwing in science, energy can't be destroyed, or it never goes away. Energy is omnipresent. There's so many interesting words.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'm a firm believer at this point.
Okay.
What really got me was reading about near-death experiences. Those are pretty fascinating. But when you read a book related to near-death experience, it's an autobiography, and that person has written, they could be anywhere on the planet, and they're basically saying the same thing. But there are even children that have had near-death experiences that haven't already been pre-programmed, and they're saying all the same things too.
Right. Yeah, I've watched a few videos of them of, documented cases and the interviews with the individuals, and it's like, wow, it's pretty wild.
Super wild. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So now you deal with, I know you deal with corporate professionals, but you deal with a lot of athletes, whether it's PGA or shotgun athletes. Did you do any sports growing up?
I am not that typical athletic person. I'm not competitive in that way either. So no, and didn't. And it's really interesting. And, even VJ, when I was working with him, he kept saying, let me show you. And have you ever putted? Like, as if that physical thing, in order to understand the problem with the physical thing, which was the putting, I needed to have done it myself. And a lot of people really do believe that. But what I tell them now is the mind is the mind is the mind. And it doesn't matter if it's in the brain of a competitor or the brain of a corporate person or the brain of an artist, how we think about things, how we respond to things, how we react, how we feel, how we believe, all of that is just human nature, and it's the same. I don't mean, anger is the same for one person as the other, but anger itself is common, right? So
yes. There's different levels and different ways of dealing with it, but yes, it's common.
And different triggers or whatever. The same with confidence. So there's these terms that we can say they're human, right? Anger, worry, doubt, second guessing, regret, over analyzing, trying too hard, trying to force solutions. Like there's all these things that are common, but why we are doing them might be different. But ultimately, because they're like anger is anger, I can help anybody with anger. I can help anybody with trying too hard. I can help anybody with insecurities and second guessing and regrets and all that stuff. And you can see how that's applicable to both life and sport. It's like sport, all those things are under a microscope. They're magnified, especially when somebody really cares about something like a competition.
Right. One of the things I had written down before I talked to you was, let me make sure I get it right, how I wrote it down here. Ooh, let me scroll up a little bit. There we go. Caddies.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a caddy on the PGA Tour is the perfect place for a coach. Not someone who, look, the Vijay Singhs of the world don't need someone to tell them how to do something. He knows how to do it. But if the caddy is a coach who has some mental training, then you can help him maintain his focus, not get distracted, and perform to his best. Does that happen on the PGA Tour?
Definitely.
That you're aware of?
Well, so I would say that the caddies are there as a good support, and definitely know that golfer well, and they're helping them read the greens, and they're doing stuff like that.
Right.
When I worked with Vijay, I also worked with one of his caddy for one of the days, to just kind of help him also, because, and this is something I tell my clients all the time. It doesn't matter if they're golfers or not, shooters, basketball, just an executive, anything. If they have, like, even a teenager, like let's say a teenager's in a sport, their parent is the coach in their, well, they probably coach too, but there's a parent in their ear. And I say, if I'm teaching your child French and you don't know how to speak French, then you can't help your child in the way that I'm teaching him how to, process information. And I feel that way too about a caddy. And I'll usually say, you're like the caddy, the parent, you're like the caddy. And so I encourage them to also do my program. And then, it works out because this is all applicable. Everything I teach is applicable to life. It's not just sport, because again, the mind is the mind is the mind. So that parent can then end up learning how to be more calm, relaxed, more confident. So we can say less stressed, less worried, less angry, less resentful, like all of those things. And, even if it's a husband that might be interested in working with me, then, or doing one of my online courses, then I'll say, hey, is your wife possibly interested? Because it would be a huge win-win for you two to learn the same language together. So going back to your point, the caddy is in a great position for that, but I think they have to know the right information and have to have learned that somewhere, from a good, reliable source that's really teaching some good information.
I have talked to, on my podcast, I've talked to world champions, national champions, multiple time national champions. And the one thing I've talked about or brought up, that one of the topics was coaching. And do they ever see coaching in practical shooting, where when you're at a major event, whether it be a world shoot, which they just had a few months ago in South Africa, or a national championship level competition, what were their thoughts about having a coach at the match? And they're like, well, but I feel like it's one of the few areas that is yet untouched in the realm of competition shooting sports. Not necessarily at a regional match or a local match, but at a national level match or a world championship level match. I feel like that's a missing component, where if you just had someone that, I've heard so many stories of people getting in their own mind of, oh my gosh, I'm behind already as I had a bad stage or whatever the case is, and it just mess with them psychologically.
Yes. So the years that I was working a lot with the PJ Tour, that was somewhere around, like, let's say 2006 to 2012 or something. And at that point, it was cool to have a personal trainer and rare to have a mental trainer. But that sport has considerably evolved to where I could probably safely assume everybody has a mental trainer now. And I watched it happen where it became more and more. So personal trainer was first, and then it became the mental training. But I get that because I think as a man, I think a lot of men would probably go first to, strength,
Right.
as let me get better. There's so many people that misunderstand or confused, or their understanding of the mental game falls seriously short. And that includes so-called experts. And from what I've seen, even sports psychology degree falls very short compared to what I'm doing. Now, that's just because of who I am, though, right? Like, that's because of all my experience in the whole spirituality thing and being a hypnotherapist and degreed in psychology. Like, there's an interesting combination that brings me personally to a point where I get it. Like, so you want to shoot instinctively, subconsciously. Well, I'm a subconscious mind expert, right? So, the understanding beliefs aren't at a conscious level. They're at a subconscious level. So you can, as a therapist, as a sports psychologist, you could sit there all day long and tell somebody, well, you should really believe in yourself and try this affirmation or try being positive here. And the thing is just like any habit. So if you think about this like a habit, once something is on autopilot, it's very challenging to change it. And that's why it says, hey, it takes 28 days to change a habit, basically, if you're lucky. But habits and beliefs are all at the subconscious level of the mind. So somebody just doing talk therapy or doing anything superficial is not going to be able to help a person get down deeper. And so, that's just the matter of facts of how it is. And until, programs or mental trainers start learning more about the subconscious, I think they're going to fall a little short in how they're able to help people. But that's just what I've seen. So yeah, I think that my observation, I've been working with competitive clay shooters since 2009, and I've seen the acceptance grow for mental training over that time, but it's been slow. I mean, because we're almost at 20 years, right? It's been slow, and there's been a lot of resistance. And I think, again, it's these brawny men, most of them, of course, not all of them, but it's these brawny men. And the tendency is to go to the physical first. The physical, like what you can see. So I'm going to change to a release trigger. I'm going to change my gun. I'm going to change my glasses. I'm going to change my vest. I'm going to change my instructor. I'm going to change my stance. I'm going to change my mount. I'm going to change, these are all these physical things, but you can change all of that. You can hire the best of the best of the best, buy the most expensive gun, you could do all of it in the most perfect possible way possible, and then step up to shoot in a competition or any time that it matters to you, and be pissed off because, I don't know, somebody cut you off on the road on your way there, and you're going to perform horribly. Maybe you don't like who you're squatted with. Maybe, I don't know. So worry, doubt, second guessing, anger, resentment, frustration, all of those things can instantly affect your ability to perform well. And it has nothing to do with how expensive your gun is or how many thousands and thousands of dollars you spent on a shooting instructor. So that's until people really get that, which, I'm working very diligently to try to educate people on it. Until they get it, they're just going to keep spinning their wheels.
One, I felt attacked when you said the guy was angry because he got cut off. Okay. Pegged me already. But
I know your
two,
type.
you probably know me better than me.
I've heard it
But
all. Yeah.
oh, I'm sure. Plus some. Uh, but two, let's talk about subconscious real quick
Yeah.
because that gets thrown out a lot, even in the world of practical shooting, rifle shooting, all of the shooting sports, subconscious. But
Yeah.
what does that mean?
I I would consider myself a zone expert at this point. And so if you were to look to studies and you were to look at there were studies done probably about 8 years ago with EKG machines attached to elite athletes when they were in their peak performance state, meaning they were literally performing perfectly or doing well. They were in an alpha brainwave state, which is conscious mind. So you got conscious and subconscious, unconscious too. We won't get into that, but you have conscious mind, subconscious mind. An EKG is measuring the conscious mind. So conscious mind in alpha is a more relaxed conscious mind instead of what would be beta, which is right above that. That's a lot more conscious mind activity, a lot of analyzing. That's the chatter that any athlete gets frustrated with, the little squirrel in their head or whatever they want to call it. It's like all that chatter. They're overthinking, overanalyzing, thinking about something else altogether, thinking about dinner, thinking about work, thinking about the previous stand, the previous shot, the next round, their score. It could be anything, literally. So all that chatter. So by fact of, hey, this conscious mind's quieter means it's not analyzing as much. It's quieter. Beautiful. Now, like, shut up, and then you can shoot from your subconscious, which is what you would consider instinctive, intuitive,
Mm,
but it's also, remember, I just a few minutes ago I said your subconscious where your beliefs are, which is like habits. So beliefs are thoughts you've repeated or just little phrases you've repeated or things somebody has said to you over and over again that's been repeated. Repetition, put it into this autopilot mode, and that's what we call a belief. It's identical with anything physical, right? So I learning to drive a stick shift, practice, practice, practice. Then it's in my subconscious as a habit. That's literally what practicing your mechanics is. Practice, practice, practice to get repetition of the same thing over and over again. It becomes a habit then. So you want to perform from that subconscious. You want to perform instinctually or from that programming, from everything you've done. That's the ideal. But what can happen is your conscious mind can get in the way of that with what I said, like worry, doubt, second guessing, over analyzing, measuring, trying too hard, trying to replicate, all those different things. So you need that conscious mind to quiet down. I think of it like a wild dog that I'm training to sit and heel. Like, sit and heel. Don't go anywhere. Just sit and heel and allow me to allow my subconscious mind and my programming, everything I've worked so hard to come up to the surface. And anybody who's ever performed in the zone, and it's not just sport, artists, theater, actors, everybody goes into the zone. It's a normal thing. Every human can go into the zone. It's a peak performance state where everything disappears around you. Time seems to fly by. You're totally engaged in whatever it is that's going on there before you, if it's a target or whatever, and it doesn't even feel like it's you pulling the trigger. That's the zone. And some people experience it randomly. Some people experience it a lot. Some people say I've never experienced it, but it is the ideal peak performance state and what everybody should strive for. They just don't know how. And it's the quieting of that conscious mind, and it takes practice. And there's all different reasons why somebody might have a lot of chatter, right? As I said earlier, for one person, it could be anger at the target setter, the weather, the person that cut him off, the squad mate, the person in the parking lot. For another, it could be insecurities, so they're second guessing, or they're teamed up or matched up or squatted with somebody who's at a higher level than them. So then they're, feel less than, or they're second guessing their decisions because they're watching the other person. There's so many different things. There's like bazillions of possibilities, but all of that gets in the way. And
okay,
yeah,
it's just all like that white noise in the background then.
The chattering. Yeah, it's that conscious
Yeah.
mind. Mm-hmm.
So, all right. It took me a long time just to trust ASMR. I'm like, there is some hidden message in here. I do not trust it. But I am one of those people that, those dolls you lay down and their eyes close?
Yes.
I am exactly the opposite. You sit me up, my eyes will close. You lay me down, my eyes open and my brain gets all busy.
Yeah.
So I use ASMR as white noise to drown out my chatter. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I can get to sleep at night. Now, my point to this is because of my distrust of ASMR, I would find it very hard to be hypnotized because I would find it very hard to allow myself to release myself to be trustful enough to do that. When you have difficult clients like that, how do you overcome some of those issues?
Yeah. So what I would want to explain, first of all, I feel like any hypnotist, if they're doing their job right, it's to educate the client on hypnosis and what it really is, because there are a lot of misconceptions. And as long as the person has misconceptions, they're going to keep themselves in beta, analyzing what's she doing, what she's saying, what's going to happen next. Am I safe? Am I going to tell her all my secrets? So that's just another version of all the chatter.
Am I going to be a bird when I wake up?
Yeah. It all points back. It's chatter is chatter. It's just, what is the topic, right? So, but you got beta as your normal brain, conscious mind, brainwave state and throughout the day.
Okay.
Alpha's a slightly quieter conscious mind, slightly relaxed, you would call it. Theta is right below that. And that's what you might call, you can have your eyes open in alpha or not, but theta, you likely have your eyes closed. And you would say, I almost fell asleep, or that was a great power nap, or I was dozing off while watching TV, but I could still hear the TV, or I could hear you walking around. Like, that's theta, right? So alpha is just really light relaxation. Maybe you've closed your eyes, maybe not. Theta is deep relaxation. Right below that's delta, and that's what we call sleep. Okay, so when you say, I have trouble going to sleep because of all the chatter in my mind, you're saying my conscious stays in beta and I have trouble going to delta. And so I found something that helps my conscious mind stop thinking about the bills, my life, the podcast, my score, whatever. You've redirected the conscious mind to, like, what is that noise? Especially because it's so quiet.
Yeah.
It causes you to tune in with your conscious mind, and your conscious mind loves the shiny penny, right? So anything that's going to be like, what, whoa, what's that? So if you can pull it in, you're basically getting it to stop all those things that were then also having a cause and effect relationship in your body. Because if you're thinking anxious thoughts, you're going to have anxiety in your body. And if you're having worrisome thoughts, you're going to have, a follow-up feeling in your body. So if you can stop all that and go to something neutral, then the uptight, if you are anxious or stressed feeling in your body, subsides, and you're able to then, if you can keep going with it, then you go to alpha, you go to theta, and then you fall asleep at delta. But if you start chattering again, there you go, right back up, right? And it's this dance. So even in the middle of the night, you can start chattering and thinking about something and pull yourself up, and then you might have to work at it again to put yourself back to sleep. So alpha, so beta, alpha, theta, delta. Hypnosis is just the range between alpha and theta. So a hypnotist would say light hypnosis is alpha, deep hypnosis is theta. So all we've done is we've learned that in that state you pass through when you fall asleep, or if you're just deeply relaxing, or when you wake up, that's those states you pass through. I'm going to help somebody hover there. And because their conscious mind isn't going 90 million miles an hour, it's not analyzing every single thing, it's not asleep, it can still hear me. If the person wants what I'm going to say to them, then they allow it to come in, and it goes straight into that subconscious mind. and it has the power of any of those other things that are already in there, those things that we call habits. So instead of the repeat to get it into subconscious, hypnosis can put that suggestion in instantly, and it has the same strength as what you would call a habit or a belief that had already been programmed. Does that make sense?
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah. So my job then is to help that person relax, and a lot of people, but not a majority, but there are people that wouldn't trust, right? They don't necessarily know me, they don't trust me, they don't trust hypnosis, they don't
Yeah,
believe
it's not a
me.
personal thing. Right.
Yeah, they're going to be analytical, and they're
Yeah.
going to keep themselves up in that beta, and maybe on purpose, right? I'm not letting my guard down. And
Yes. It's exactly me to a T.
so when
And that,
go ahead.
I was going to say, I feel like I'm in theta a lot because I don't know if you've dealt with any military folks, but I feel like it kind of started there with the stuff that I did in the military. I was always on edge, per se, always on high alert.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just continued for the rest of my life because I did it for almost 10 years. So
Mm-hmm.
from that point forward, it's like ingrained in me. So even in my house when I'm asleep, I feel like I do hit deep sleep on occasion, but not a lot. Like the other night, I had like 4.5, 5 hours of what it said I had light sleep.
Right,
And it's
right.
like I can't quite, it's hard for me to get into a deep sleep. I can do a 15-minute power nap, never fall asleep, and feel like I slept for 2 hours.
And that's the thing of so when somebody comes to me for hypnosis, the saying is 15 minutes of hypnosis feels like 2 hours of sleep. So you actually said it exactly the way that it is. And
Whoa.
yeah, but it's because they're in this alpha theta state, and it can feel like that there's time flies by, everything seems to disappear around
Mm-hmm.
me, all the same stuff. Remember, I said the peak performance state for an athlete is alpha. So it's that first level. And now it's still important for deep sleep to get like REM. And there's definitely things that occur in your brain that are necessary in your
Right.
body. And I have an audio. It's called 20-minute hypnosis for transformation. And I had initially made that for when people would come to me in the office, and if they were on guard, I would say, here's an audio. You go home, right? You're in the safety of your own home. You get to dabble with it, on your own time, and you can see how it's nothing, right? It's me saying, close your eyes. Okay. You do it or don't do it, right? Taking a few good deep breaths. You do it or you don't do it, and it's just, all hypnotists can come up with their own sequences and throw in other ones, but ultimately you're just trying to help the person relax. So it's tighten your face and relax it, or tighten your hands and relax them, or pay attention to your shoulders right now and notice how tense they are. Now release all of that right now and let your shoulders melt down. Right? So you can just say all these different things, and that person in the safety of their own home is more likely to follow along and then realize this isn't what I thought it was. And it's relaxing. It feels good. Now, there's a double edged sword of that. They might go, that's not what I thought it was. So I don't think it's going to work for me because nothing weird happened. Well, no, nothing weird's going to happen. You just learn to relax. But that audio is now one of the key parts of all my training programs, because it ended up being so much more. Like somebody would say, oh my God, I'm sleeping so much better now. Well, that makes sense, right? From what I explained, they listen to that 20-minute hypnosis for transformation, and it's helping them to learn to relax their conscious mind, and they go to sleep and they'll say, I'm sleeping better, I'm sleeping deeper, or in the middle of the night, I listen to it and I fall back to sleep easier. So that's something I would suggest to you if you're interested. But also, now that's part of my training because, as I already said, alpha is the peak performance state. And if somebody's learning how to put themselves into an alpha or theta state, then they're learning how to bridge themselves from all that chatter. But the bigger picture is, what is the chatter? Because that all has to be addressed. And that's what I call the mental training. Like, what one person it could be worry, one person is, regret and replaying the past, and another person it's over analyzing or just thinking they have all the answers and trying to force things and all sorts of stuff like that.
Okay. Interesting. So there's no message that if you played the audio backwards, there's no hidden message.
I know. I'm pretty fascinated with subliminal messages, though. Although I haven't dived in to study it or use it, but I think it's pretty cool. Subliminal messages.
Yeah, pretty wild.
Yeah.
All right, so for somebody who, like, we heard the VJ Singh story, which is awesome, but let's go to the shooting sports for just a moment, which isn't a whole lot different than golf to me. I've played golf, I've done shooting sports. Now I've never been a professional golfer, but I see the similarities from having done
Sure.
both.
hmm
And for someone who is in the top 10, but can't seem to get themselves, or maybe even top 5 consistently in the shooting sports, but can't seem to get to that next level, where do you normally tell them to start?
So that reminds me of another story. Years ago, I was working with Nota Begay. And Nota Begay was a PGA Tour pro. Now he's on the Golf Channel. He's a commentator. But one of the times I was in a session with him, he was like, I'm going to show you something, right? So he gets out a piece of paper, he gets out a pen, and he says, every single person who makes it on the PGA Tour, like qualifies, right? They have to go through Q School, they have to qualify, they get into the PGA Tour. Every single one of them has great mechanics, period. Like there's just no qualms. Like, you're taking the upper percentage of all golfers that get on here. So
Right.
they all have great mechanics. But who's going to rise to the top and who's going to stay at the top? And who's going to get to the top and actually follow through and win on Sunday? And that's all related to the mental game. So, and you'll see, and golf is, I think, one of the best sports for watching what happens on Sunday, because they can play well and they can seem like they're doing great. And then Sunday comes and they fall apart. And it's
Pressure.
it's that chatter. It's like whatever it is they're thinking, it could be anything. Or they become too cautious, too careful, too deliberate. There's so many different things that's all mental. There's not one thing about that's mechanics. But for, again, like I said earlier, for a long time, and in a lot of sports, and still in a lot of sports, they want to go to the mechanics, or they want to go to my elbow. I need elbow surgery. Okay, well, it was fine on Saturday. So what, why on Sunday? So that, let's see, where was I going with that? You had asked, what did you ask me?
Someone consistently in the top 10, top
Oh, yeah.
5. How do you get them to the top? Where do they start to
Right.
get that ability to then become a winner?
Well, I mean, I've developed programs for that, but that's where I would say, like, they have to learn, they have to understand their conscious and their subconscious, their ideal state, what that is, the zone. What am I doing to keep myself out of it? Because it's not a matter of how can I force myself into it. It's a matter of what am I doing to keep myself out of it. And that's a huge light bulb moment for people, because there are still high level so-called experts that are out there saying you can't make the zone happen. You can't train for the zone. I have people that are literally instructors that have adapted their own little mental training programs, and they tell their students, you can't train to be in the zone. If anybody ever tells you that, they're lying, and that's not true. It's not true. You can train for the zone state, but it's not a matter of like pushing yourself into it, because that's the trying too hard. That's the becoming too analytical. That's the opposite of what we're talking about here. So in some respects, they're right, because you can't make it happen. It's the opposite. You have to let go of all of the crap that's keeping you from going into this very natural state. And to me, that takes help, right? I mean, we if you knew how to do it already, you'd already be doing it, right? It's
Right.
like
Yes.
you're
Right.
you're your best version of yourself right now. And so you need new software, right? You need new understanding. You need new information. It's like a computer is going to function at a certain level until you add more software. And so you're working with what you've got right now. You need to learn more or different information.
I feel like I'm at my software limit. I need a hardware upgrade because I'm in my upper 50s. So I feel like my hard drive and my RAM are a little slow for my years of being on this
You
place.
can teach old dogs new tricks.
Tell that to my Dane who's over here sleeping.
Nice, nice. Yeah.
Have you ever found one class of athletes to be more difficult to work with, meaning to train to get them to that zone than others? Is there a sport that's easier?
I don't know about a sport. I can tell you a personality type,
Okay.
right? So if there's two things coming to mind that are more challenging to help them. One are the ones that think they already know it all, right? So big egos. Anybody with a big fat ego, which is tricky in the sport world because
Right.
just for how that ego is fed, with the praise and you're amazing and you're behind the ropes and nobody can touch you and they want your signature or whatever. Like it's very, very obvious at the like especially the elite level, which is where I've seen this over and over again. So if they think they know it all, they got it all figured out, arrogant ego. Those are the ones that are going to have a harder time. But you don't just see that in elite sports. You see it everywhere in life, right? That's a thing. If anything, the word narcissist is getting thrown around like crazy in this day and age. And
Yeah.
at first, I thought it was getting overused, but now I'm like, you know what? I think it's actually a thing. I think it's actually a thing because narcissism is on a spectrum as well. You can have, higher or lower levels of thinking you're the center of the planet and nobody else matters and nothing else matters and you have no empathy, right? There's different levels of that. But a lot of the social media and such can feed that in people and make it stronger. So those ones are very difficult, if not impossible, to work with. The others are more like the ones that hire me the most are the type A, because now, so they're not going to have the stubbornness like somebody with a inflated ego, but they have so much analytical, they have such an analytical mind, right? They're measuring, they're gauging, they're strategic. All of those things can make it challenging, but they are the ones that hire me the most. So those are the ones I do help the most. And for whatever reason, they realize they need help.
Right. I feel like the extremes are going to be your problem. So self-confidence, but not egotistical will be okay. But there is a gray line there where you can cross over and then it becomes harmful. So
Yeah.
I had written down that self-confidence and belief in your ability is huge in becoming a champion.
Yes.
I add to that discipline and desire, because you also have to want to be it, because if you don't have the want and desire, then you're not going to be disciplined to do what you need to do to get there.
Right.
Is there anything from that recipe that I am missing?
Well, those are all important things, and the wanting it for yourself, it goes with everything. And again, if I go back to my hypnosis practice back in early 2000, if somebody called me and said, "Hey, can you help my wife quit smoking?" it was almost always going to fail. The person
Right.
had to want it for themselves. And that applies to not only the conscious level effort, which is what you were referencing, But even in hypnosis, at the subconscious, because you're not going to accept any suggestions you don't want. And so even a teenager, if a parent says, "Hey, will you help my teen? He wants to, be a professional athlete, a golfer, whatever." I repeatedly and will verify that that child really wants it, because otherwise it's a waste of my time and theirs and the parents' money and everything else. It cannot be that the parent wants it for the kid more than the kid wants it for themselves. So,
Right.
but yeah, so discipline, absolutely. But anybody with the competitive nature, meaning it's in their blood, that thing you asked me early, the first question, I think, I never personally had that. So, at least not in sports. I'm pretty driven in the work that I do. Like, not pretty. I'm pretty obsessed with it. But I do work a lot, and I love what I do. So I'm very driven. And if I hit a bump in the road or something cut short, I'm up the next day, and I'm still going to make it happen. So very similar to the competitor. And a lot of times, then that drive is built into the competitive spirit, that die hard kind of thing. So that's there for sure. Ask me the question again. Like, there is, if you were missing something related to peak performance.
Well, oh yeah. The recipe. I said
Mhm.
self-confidence and belief in your ability. So it's not just self-confidence, but it's belief. And you said something earlier too
Mhm.
that I really believe, or I really agreed with you, which is it's not just repeating things over and over. It's repeating things you believe over and over, is it not? Because you can't just say, "Oh, like me, I'm going to be, I am whatever, say whatever it is." But if I don't have anything concrete that I can kind of back that up with or actually believe, then it's just empty words, is it not?
Mhm. Yes. And so think of the conscious level and the subconscious level. If you have a belief like, I'll never amount to anything, I'm not smart enough to go to school, I'll never be as good as these other guys, it could be anything. That's already in
That'll,
here. It's a
right.
habit. It's already repeated, reinforced, and on autopilot. And so, if on the surface, your conscious mind, somebody tells you, "Hey, you're pretty amazing. You could do anything you put your mind to," that belief wins. The one underneath wins. And it actually is protected by something called the critical factor. So that your guard would come up and it would become protective of this thing that may not even be in your best interest. But yeah, and that's why, for some, if they don't understand, that's why affirmations and so-called positive thinking don't work. Um, because if you're saying something repeatedly that you don't believe on any level, it's nothing. It's nothing. And if anything, you might even be causing damage by reinforcing, strengthening the thing that's already down there. So
Right. Without even knowing it.
yeah, whether it's affirmations and hypnosis suggestions are basically affirmations just said to a person when they're in that relaxed state. So, I understand affirmations and suggestions, and they, positive, present tense, blah, blah, blah. But um, anytime I give suggestions to somebody, I already know they have to believe in it. So I'm going to use their own words. I'm going to twist something that they've said so that I can combine it, like put it in a nice little ribbon. When I say it to them, it's what they want. No, it's got to be what they want, and they got to believe it on some level. And and so there's always, I even said that about VJ, like in his hypnosis audio, I gave proof. Well, first of all, I had to believe he could be the best putter in the world, and then in order, I
Right.
I processed that already in my mind. So then I'm like, okay, well, now I need him to get that in his own subconscious by making it believable. And confidence, going back to that, I think of confidence like a huge bowling ball. It will just slam down that aisle and break all sorts of different things. So it's very powerful. I teach confidence with humility versus confidence with ego. So, one goes one way and one goes the other. And um, to me, the confidence with humility is absolutely necessary for long term success in anything. Um, confidence with the big ego is going to have temporary, and then the person
Hmm.
will crash. And we've seen that over and over again. I think Tiger Woods is a perfect example of how it went to his head, and then with that inflated ego starts doing things around his life that thought he was beyond, whatever rules of his marriage or something, right? He's above the law
Right.
kind of thing.
Right. Well, and that's what I was going to say too. But isn't or ask, I guess, when you say confidence with ego, I feel like that ego is a manifestation of protection again of the individual, which could be a negative. So it could be just an inflated realm of self, an extreme inflated realm of self confidence, but it could also be something where they're trying to protect them. They think they're protecting themselves from any negative when really it's a negative from the inside.
Yes, a lot of people, a lot that have that big old ego and can seem so confident on the outside, have a ton of insecurities. Like it's more,
Like a bully.
yeah, it's more common than not, right? Yeah, but I do want to explain. All humans have ego. All humans. It's part of this physical experience, and it does create this separation. So you can get all spiritual or biblical about that, but this separation that has occurred is part of this ego mind. And if you start going a little bit further, you go, oh, ego, I'm right, you're wrong. That separates, right? You don't know what you're talking about. You keep screwing up. You, I, and it's this separation. And so, ego, we all have it. I think it's something that can be understood and tamed down, like chill out, versus let me feed you steak dinner so you're thriving and growing into this monster, right? So I think that's a really important thing to understand is we all have it. It's not like, oh, that's a guy, that guy has a big old ego. Well, we all have ego, and we can learn how to recognize it, see what level it's functioning at, and ideally chill it out a little bit and have humility. Humility is the solution. Because if you think of, I'm right, you're wrong, that's screwed up, it should be this way, that's the separation. Where humility is like, oh, I hadn't thought of it that way, and you could be right. Right? That's more humble. That's more humility.
Okay.
Hmm.
On your website, I saw that you had something on there. It said you had a PGA Tour professional increases winnings by 219% in just 5 months compared to the 5 months previous.
Yes.
How much work does it take, and how frequent is that to be able to take someone from where they were to 219% better? We'll call it that because we're just judging by their earnings, their winnings.
Yes.
How much work does it take to do that?
So those stats were crunched with is it the 6 or 8 PGA Tour pros, but it was the 5 months, 5 tournaments before, and the 5 tournaments after. Now, a lot of them went to a tournament a week, some of them every other week, but none of them really went much longer than that. So so it's 5 tournaments before, so that's somewhere between 5 and 10 weeks before, and somewhere between 5 and 10 weeks after. And after our work together, and I'm still working with them, but that was just the comparable. Um, yeah, so that did include the window with Vijay Singh, but a lot of times I'd be flown out to a PJ Tour event, and I would have 1 or 2 sessions with somebody, and that would a lot of times include hypnosis. So um, I do a combination of what I call mental training with hypnosis, and for a long time, a PJ Tour pro, because they wanted some kind of secret weapon, they'd be like, I just want the hypnosis. And I learned over the years in private practice as well, like if I want people to have long-term success, which I do, then they need to understand their mind better. And I train them on the use of their mind. And so then I do a combination. So it's similar to cognitive therapy as far as we're going to talk about this and we're going to be proactive. We're not going to sit there and dredge up all of this stuff from the past and sit there and talk about that consciously. Now, in hypnosis, I've helped people to heal some things from their past. But that's not just sitting there chit-chatting about it on the superficial level, right? So there was this, one of the guys on that was in that stat. I'd worked with him a few times. It's a few different tournaments, a few different sessions. But this one particular time, because he was starting to get it, it was starting to all come together. I think it was probably our third or fourth appointment together. And he said, I feel like nothing I do is good enough. And that haunts me constantly, but it's my father's voice in my head. And he's like, and my father's dead, but I've just kept it going. Right. So, we did look at that, but in hypnosis, I had him do what's called forgiveness therapy. And he won that next week. He blew it out of the water. So that can happen that quickly.
Wow. Okay. Now, typically a PGA Tour tournament is 4 days. It's 72 holes. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Mm-hmm. If you're flying to an event to work with these guys, what days are you like waking up at 7 and having DJ on a table and, at 7:30 so he can be out on the green at 9? What's going on here?
No. And I'll tell you, first of all, I would go out more on a Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on when they arrived. Hardly any of them arrived on Monday, and they would drip in on Tuesday and definitely be there practicing by Wednesday. So it depended on who I was working with and when they're arriving, but that's when I would work with them the most. Now, I might have needed to talk them off the ledge or just do something minor on one of those other days. But just like mechanics, nobody should learn something new the day of or the day before a tournament or anything that's important to them and try to apply it because it's too conscious.
Right.
You're still analyzing and thinking about it, and you're going to be too conscious. That's related to physical, the mental, and it's also related to the subconscious, which would be in the mind. So I don't want anybody learning something new related to the mental game the day that they're competing or the day before or whatever. Like that's it's too fresh. Hypnosis is different again because that's going into the subconscious. But if it's something mental, I shouldn't say that. If it's something conscious, you don't want to be having to sit there and analyze and try to remember and think about it. It's same. The only time that something like that works is very, very similar to the what is it?
ASMR?
ASMR.
Yeah.
Release trigger. So if somebody's flinching and they go to release trigger, that's no different than the shiny penny of the conscious mind concept or the ASM. I'm going to say it wrong. ASMR.
ASMR, yeah.
ASMR.
ASMR.
I want to throw D in there for some reason. ASMDR. The release trigger will work temporarily for that person for the same reasons that ASMR works for you. It gives your conscious mind something to do. There's a lot of conscious focus or attention that needs to go into deliberately releasing a trigger when you've been pulling for a while. So that's why that can work for somebody as far as ending flinching. But most of the time their flinching comes back and that was just a Band-Aid. But now you understand more about the conscious mind. You can see why it would work for a little while.
Right. And that's all it is, a patch. So how many, they always say getting there to the top is hard. Staying there is harder. Mm-hmm. Have you worked with athletes or anybody to be able to maintain that level of performance over time?
Oh, for sure. But it has a lot to do with the person, the student, the client, right? If they have a somewhat larger ego, they might think
they've got it all figured out.
Yeah. And then they'll do a session, they have great results, and then I don't hear from them for a little while because they're riding that wave, you know?
Right.
I actually have a few clients that are like that now. It's frustrating. One of them I've worked with off and on since 2009. And I still tell him the same thing. It'd be really great if you did my program from beginning to end because you wouldn't have the fires. Because he contacts me to put out fires. But how about just not even having the fires, right? That's what the training can do. But if you're just getting concepts or having like something like hypnosis that comes in and it's like, wow, this is cool and it's working, and then you just go out there for a while, you know, you're human and things happen, you know. Our human society tends to be negative. And that's probably not a surprise for people. But if you go to work on a Monday morning after the weekend, most people are going to complain. Their weekend, the weather, they're going to sit around the water cooler or the coffee pot and this is miserable and that's horrible and the weather sucks and my husband did this. It's like that's just what humans have been trained to do for whatever reason. But we see it on TV, we see it in the media. For whatever reason, we're crazy, right? People want negative.
Everybody has a level of crazy. Yes. Everybody.
Why do we feed off a negative? I mean, it's weird. You know, the Good News Channel probably wouldn't go over very well. I mean, people try. They try.
Well, I mean, look, you just brought up something. Yes, absolutely. Because what gets ratings?
I know. It's
dirty
weird.
Laundry.
Yes.
It's dirty laundry. You know what I mean? It's not the good stories. Oh, let's talk about, you know, something nice somebody did. No, it's the name a traumatic event or the plane that crashed or that's, oh my gosh, I got to watch, or Venezuela or whatever.
So weird. I don't know why. I mean, I catch myself and I know better. You know, I'll be on social media and somebody like I just this morning, what was it? Oh, it was look at this ex-husband and this ex-wife and they're having the way they're disagreeing and the girlfriend's there. It was like this drama thing and I'm like, why am I watching this? But it's so interesting. But anyways, my point is I can help somebody, I can work with them, they can be doing great, and then they go back out to that world, right? And unless they're really strict on themselves and stick to what I've taught them, they're going to get sucked back in, right?
And back in the same routine.
I've seen it. My online course used to be a monthly subscription, and I just made it lifetime. And this is one of the reasons, because a person needs to be able to go back. There's like 21 video lessons. They need to go back. They need to understand what I just said. You know, you're going to get out there. Mm-hmm. And as much as it's frustrating, Vijay Singh did the same thing. I worked with him that weekend before. He had scheduled ahead of time for a follow-up appointment. But once he started winning, he never heard from him again as far as all that. He didn't do that other appointment. And, sadly, he didn't win again after that for a very, 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 like a long time, 10 years or something. But the potential is there and the ability is there. It's just, you gotta, I have the benefit myself of teaching this and then loving it and practicing what I preach. So I can see like there's proof in my own life of practicing these skills over and over and over again. And like my stress level is almost 100% gone. Of course I'm human and things can affect me. God forbid, something happens to one of my kids. And I already tell people I will be human in that moment. It will happen. I will be extremely upset. But what happens for me is my recovery, like my ability to bounce back, my ability to see the good in something, my ability to get back into the present moment and be efficient and handle something in an appropriate manner and with that full presence, like that ability is actually one of the things that attracted my husband to me, because he had come to help me at my shotgun club. He was going to set targets because he's a nationally recognized target setter. And so he was like, I'll come to your club and, we'll just put my name on your event and that'll draw some people. He's like, I'm driving down that way anyways, heading to some of the big blasts. And blah, blah, blah. But when he came to help, several of the trap machines had maintenance issues during the event. And, like anybody who takes pride in their work, he was like, what in the hell? Right? He's like ready to freak out. Like, my name's on this. What's going on? And he watched me just calmly go to, plan A, plan B, plan C, like just rise to the occasion in a really calm fashion. And he was like, what? How did you do that? I'm like, how did I do what? Because this is who I am at this point. But the ability to be like the best version of myself, even under pressure or in some of the most challenging situations, that's what I've learned through what I teach and practicing what I teach. And you can bring that to anything.
There is one guy in the practical shooting world that is undefeated at the world championship level since he was 16. He's now in his 40s. And to this day, I don't know what in the world. I haven't had a chance to talk to him. He's French, so he lives in France. But I've also had conversations with other world champions who are like, yeah, that's the only guy that we know of who has the ability to, if you had a speed dial, he would have a speed dial to where he can, fluctuate from 95 to 96 to 97, 98, up to 100%, back down to 95. Like, he can dial it right in. He doesn't get affected by anything. I don't even know how this one guy does it. I mean, what can you shed any light on that? How somebody could do that?
Well, he adapts well is what it sounds like you're saying, right?
Yes.
When he comes back into the present moment and can be his best self no matter what the circumstances are.
Yes.
Yeah, which
is
what I just said, right? About myself even. So so being able to be present in real life, meaning your conscious mind's not at a previous stand, station, shot, miss target, miss whatever. It's not doing that, which is common. A lot of people do that. So in the most ideal situation, it's not doing that. It's not thinking about the score. It's not thinking about steak dinner. It's not thinking about who's watching and what they're thinking and if you're holding them up or who's doing what and who's doing what. It's the absence of all those things, which goes right back to what I was saying. It's the quieting of that conscious mind and being able to be in that moment, not overthinking it, not worrying about it, not frustrated with it. And you just keep adapting to whatever's happening. So I love talking to people like that because they get it. Now where he got it, we don't really know, right? So I don't know what kind of upbringing he had, what his parents were. Somewhere he got exposure and that became his normal.
At a young age, because at 16, he was a world champion.
Yeah.
And he's never been defeated on the world stage.
That's cool. What sport is that?
Practical shooting, IPSC, International Practical Shooting.
Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. Eric Graffel.
There's a guy in clay shooting, competitive clay shooting, that's in England, George Digweed, and he's been world champion like a bazillion times. And when I watch him, he just, in sporting clays, you're standing, you got to stand, you're standing up there waiting your turn, you got a squad, and there was a shoot off, and there were several of the high level shooters that were up there, and it was late in the afternoon, early evening, because it was, a shoot off. So, but he's over on the bench, like laid back, he's got his arm, he's looking around at the audience, and I'm like, that is fascinating. That is so cool. And then when it was his turn, he would just leisurely go up there and then, break him out of the sky, no problem. And so, some people do things like that on purpose to not look. I don't want to see what somebody else is doing. I don't want to see what their plan is, their technique, their break point. I don't want to see that because I don't want it to get in my head. But I didn't have that feeling. He wasn't really struggling with it. Now, he could have been doing it anyways by looking at the audience and all that. And maybe he's just used to it. But there's things that people do, whether deliberately or just part of their nature, that help them to have that, I'm in this moment. I'm not overthinking it. I'm calm. I'm cool, collected, can flow with it. All of that. You can train for it too.
Okay. I
Yeah.
mean, he's the only guy I know of that I've ever met that is as consistent as he is. Like there is nobody like that I've seen. And there are some that are very good, very consistent, but they don't win every match, and this guy doesn't lose ever. So it's like, what?
That's
It's
cool.
ridiculous. Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
guy in sporting clays also, his name in the States, his name is Brandon Powell. And he just, if he's at an event, he's going to win. 99% chance he's going to win it. And I watched,
How, how much of a psychological advantage is that?
well, it goes back to that confidence being like a bowling ball, right? So there's momentum just in that for that person, and that confidence growing like a snowball.
Uh,
Again, yeah.
What kind of effect is that for numbers 2 through 5 when they show up at the
Oh
match and they
yeah.
know he's there?
Again, going back in time a little bit, but back when Tiger Woods was really well known and winning all the time, another phenomenon, right? He won all the time,
Right.
no matter what. I had
Starting at a young age.
Yeah, I had a client or clients, but this one in particular, he said, I can't stand it when I'm teamed up with Tiger Woods because hundreds, hundreds and
Mm,
hundreds, and you think about a golf course, and things are roped off.
they
So there's these,
follow him.
they follow him and they would, call out his name, constantly calling out his name and hooting and hollering and blah, blah, the entire time. And it was so deflating to anybody playing with them. And so it just was such a challenge for, 4 or 5 hours in a day to hear everybody rooting for the person you're with. And, now, just as a little aside, I'll tell you, after Tiger Woods had all those issues with his wife and all, his career crashed. And I went to PJ Tour event in Ponte Vedra. It was one of the first ones, if not, it might have been the first one that he played after taking a break for a while. There was like, and this is no joke, I'd seen hundreds of people follow him where you couldn't even get around the golf course to 2 or 3 following him. And I saw people spit at him. I saw people throw their gum at
Ooh.
him. And can you imagine being that person who at one point had hundreds and all that momentum, all that energy and all that, like, oh, I mean, just you're going to feel it because the other guy felt it deflating him. He's feeling it inflating him.
Right.
And then to have people spitting at you and throwing their gum at you. Yeah. He's never been the same since. But
No, he hasn't.
that's all mental. That's all mental. Of course, he might not admit that, but
Right. But it is. I totally agree because well, I mean, now after all of the surgeries, his skills might be different. But at the time, it wasn't. That wasn't the situation. So it wasn't like his skills got deflated, but the mental game did.
yeah, it's like learning how to drive a stick shift. I don't drive a car that is a stick shift very often, but when I do, I'm rusty for the first, whatever, 5 minutes max, maybe. And then I'm fine because it's all programmed in my subconscious already. And that's just driving a car. So think of a golfer or somebody who's been at their sport, any sport, for any length of time. That repetition's in that subconscious. And so ideally, it's the proper repetition, meaning
Mhm.
you've had instruction or you have somebody or you just know, somehow you know that what you're repeating is good stuff. And then it's there. It's not going anywhere. Just got to be able to access it.
Okay. So taking those guys who made it through Q school to get onto the PGA Tour. In practical shooting, you have different levels of classification. GM, Grandmaster, would be the highest level for practical shooting. So those guys would be the guys who you would consider to have graduated or made it through Q school. Once they've reached that point, though, So now you know their skill level is there. It's no longer a skill level issue. Now it's accessing that skill on demand.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a framework there of mental training that they can follow?
Yeah. So the way I see it, again, this goes back kind of similar to what I said earlier, meaning you don't want to ever learn something on your mechanics and then apply it that day at an event, right?
Right.
Well, you don't want to
Yes.
learn something with your mental and apply it that day. And so, because this was actually selfish at first, because remember, I went to school to help children and families. I was like, why am I in this world with these elite athletes? Most of them are arrogant as hell. They're going to ignore me and pretend they don't know me. I could help them win $1 million and they're still going to act like they don't know who I am. I'm like, you know? And so, so what, one of the things that helped me was, hey, buddy, this isn't just applicable to your sport. And by the way, you shouldn't only practice it in your sport because you need repetition ahead of time. So everything I teach you, you should practice in life. Every waking moment is an opportunity to practice mental skills because the brain is the brain is the brain. It doesn't matter if it, what piece of the day and what you're doing. So everything I teach is applicable to every moment of the day. Like, how am I thinking about this? How present am I? What kind of thoughts am I having? How do I correct those? What should I be thinking instead? What are my belief system? All of that stuff. And so a person like that's the type that's going to get angry at an event is going to get angry when something doesn't go their way in life. Like, that doesn't just show up at the event. So being able to address things like confidence and worry, doubt, second guessing, regret, all of that, those are human tendencies. They're under the magnifying glass in sport. And so address them in life, learn how to be a better person in all of these areas in life. Then, because you're mastering this information, you've improved as a human being, then you just apply it that Saturday, at a tournament. But you're not applying something you don't already know. It's like, this is who I'm becoming. This is who I've already become. I already know how to do this. I'm just making sure that I'm still doing it while I'm competing. So then it's not like an on and off switch. I mean, it can be, especially if you're like, oh my God, it's Sunday and I'm in the lead. You might go, okay, I need to make sure I'm doing the right stuff. Right. But, or even early on with just going to a competition because, you're just new to it, or every time I go, I always fall apart at the beginning. Like, it could be anything. So there are times where you can be more deliberate, but in the most ideal, people are learning how to have peak human performance in life, and sport is just one element of their life. And so it's just something they're already doing, not something they only apply to that sport or that time. Right?
I feel like, yeah,
Okay.
I can see that. That makes perfect sense. I feel like something you just said could be a trap too. Like, oh, I'm leading after Saturday, going into Sunday. I need to make sure I'm doing what I need to do. I almost feel like you could subconsciously turn it conscious, put it into your conscious mind, and then create chatter and an issue.
Yes. So conscious and subconscious need to be in the most ideal state to be your best. And so there's certain things the conscious mind needs to be doing, and certain things the subconscious mind. That's the ideal state. So your conscious mind, that's something you can monitor. If it's, oh, I'm still thinking about a previous shot, or, oh, I'm thinking about work, or the argument I had with my partner this morning. Like, that stuff you can manage, and every moment there's a possibility for something else, like somebody driving, cutting you off on the highway, right? So that's an ongoing thing. But yeah, as far as becoming too conscious again, that's when it's not super familiar, and you haven't been practicing and doing your homework in life.
Well, I mean, but could someone new to high level competition fall into that trap? I feel like you could, because you've never really experienced it, so it would be something harder to deal with.
Yeah, again, the more familiar you are with being the best version of yourself on a daily basis, then you're just continuing that into the
Okay.
sport. There's going to be times that's more challenging, right? So the best version of myself is going to be challenged if my husband comes home and he's crabby and miserable and he wants to get in a fight or something. Or the best version of myself is going to be challenged when I have a flat tire and I have some place I need to be. So there's things, but those are all opportunities to practice. And so that's no different than I want to be the best version of myself in this competition, but I just got what's equivalent to a flat tire. I just missed the target. I just, my gun broke, but that's all right. I have another one, so I'm going to hold it together, or my friend's offering me theirs. There's different things, but, being able to go through that flat tire and still be your best self does take a little practice and an understanding, right? You got to know what the heck that means and how to do it.
That's interesting because I've interviewed two people who have had that exact issue at a match. Not the flat tire, but well, yeah. I mean, we could use that terminology, had a flat tire, and basically end their chance of winning the match.
Yeah.
And it was in both situations, it was a mechanical failure that ended their chance. And I'm like, how did you hold it together knowing that, number one, you were one of two people that was expected to win that match? Like you and the other, one of them is a young female. She's like 18 years old. And I'm like, how did you hold it together? Because that happened on day one of a 3-day match. I was like, I would have been like, I would have thrown the gun in the trash. I'd have walked off the stage. I'd have been, I'm exaggerating, obviously, but my point is that would have been difficult mentally. And here you are at such a young age, having to deal with that and then basically refocus everything in an instant to keep your head in the game. And she did. And she still climbed right back into the
Nice.
very near the top, but I'm like, so it's interesting because I had never considered it that way, I guess. All of those are just opportunities to practice being better.
All life, every curveball is an opportunity to practice being better. But we, as our ego human selves, would rather have a temper tantrum about it. And this is wrong. It should have been that way. This shouldn't happen. This shouldn't have happened to me. This shouldn't break. This should be better. All that stuff, that's all ego related. So, again, learning and understanding those tendencies and being able to tame it down, chill out. It's okay. This is an item that can break, right? It's all right. It's an item that can break. It's not the best time, but I'm just gonna go like I said. My husband, before we were dating, observed. I went to Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, like calm, cool, and collected, and things got done. Where a lot of people without any kind of training or peace of mind, if you want to say, would be losing it in some form or fashion, and then falling apart, and then the outcome, the performance isn't good.
Now, at a national match, I had a similar mechanical failure, and I refocused just by there was another gentleman on our squad who was of equal skill. So my focus was, okay, I want to try to maintain the rest of my match with him and see if I can gain any ground on him. But now I'm wondering, I'm like, was that ego talking or was that me trying to be my best self? Now I'm questioning myself here. You have me questioning my entire being.
Oh man. Scary.
That's it. My betas are on fire right now.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, but I'm impressed that 18-year-old could do that, but that's why she's where she is, right? That's one of the elements, one of the pieces of the recipe. That's why she's at where she's at. And for whatever reasons, we may never know how she's accomplished that, but it could be a different combination of things from her life, her childhood, her training, all of it together, whatever.
It's probably that she's just isolated in the Louisiana swamp. So,
There you go. That will do
that's
it.
be it.
I always say that when I see like child, teen, whatever clients versus older, there's pros and cons to both, right? There's the experience of being older, the wisdom, the insight, the repetition. What kind of repetition is important though? But one of the primary differences that I think are in favor of the younger is all the possibilities of what can go wrong and how this is bad. It's like a file cabinet. All this stuff in the 18-year-old's file cabinet is pretty short. And so
Right.
they don't have as many like, oh my gosh, this could mean that, or this could happen, or that's that, this happened last year or whatever, right? They have a lot less of that. So in that respect, that's helpful to them. But there's also a lot of wisdom and positive experiences in that file cabinet for the older person.
How much of it though could be too like for someone who gets into the sport, say a little bit later in life, in their 20s or 30s, instead of, in their teens, how much of life's bad habits are now interfering? Like you said, maybe 28 days to break those bad habits. But when there have been multiple national champions and even a few world champions who got into the sport at a very young age and were champions at a young age. So they haven't necessarily built the bad habits in there that have to be overcome. How much of that plays a part?
Well, it's like anything else. There could be good stuff programmed in there, and there could be limiting stuff programmed in there. So some of it's going to be beneficial, and some of it is not. And that's part of what I mean by, there's certain things your subconscious should be doing, and certain things that your conscious mind should be doing. So the subconscious, that's why I love hypnosis, because we can identify and then make a change to something versus, all right, I'm going to identify it. Am I really going to be able to change it? That's our knee-jerk reactions, right? Our habits are our go-tos. And if we've had a long day, if things are challenging, if I want to reward myself, I revert back to what's familiar and what's easy versus what's newer. And now there's times where a competitive shooter will, maybe they've had a new instructor and they have some new techniques. And even if they've been doing it for 2, 3, 4 months, but if they're not performing well, they can, under kind of panic, revert back to some of their other techniques. That's easier. That's programmed down in there. It's the easier, and not that that's going to fix it because it wasn't working before. But habits are interesting, and for the way that I am about mental training, how are you eating? How are you drinking? How are you sleeping? All of that contributes. I call it 7 elements of peak performance. All of that contributes to how capable you are to be your best self. They say, a lot of shooters understand that dehydration literally changes the shape of their eyeball and then their vision's off. So, some of that's pretty obvious and clear. But if you don't have a habit of drinking enough water, then that's a habit that needs to be addressed, right? If you have a habit of drinking a lot of coffee that's dehydrating you and 5 cups a day or something, then that's something that would need to be addressed if you cared enough about being your best self. If there's a drinking habit like alcohol, or somebody's drinking a significant amount every night or the night of the events or at the tournament because it's fun and it's a party, and that's probably something that needs to be looked at, because it's highly likely they're not functioning at their best. I say highly likely because there's a few outliers that I've known that eat crappy, drink alcohol, smoke cigarette, and they still perform well. But those are the outliers.
Stop talking about John Daly like that.
Right.
Well, you've already triggered me 3 times with anger, ego, and caffeine now. So
I actually just made myself say, it's time for my afternoon coffee. Yeah.
Well, that's why I have this giant one. I'm like, all right,
Uh-huh.
I'm going to need caffeine for this one. Now, I want to go back to some other stuff because when you're talking, I'll write stuff down to be able to go back and ask you questions. Once someone has learned, they've come to you, they've learned how to relax, they've learned how to accept the messages subconsciously. Are there athletes that you've created audio tapes for that when they're sleeping, they can play and it's just a constant
Oh, yeah.
repetition and feeding that? Okay.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of hypnosis audios that I've made over the years and all different topics. So like even drinking more water,
Oh,
exercising more, like because I'm not just working with athletes, right? So I have a ton of hypnosis audios that are instant downloads, but I have a bunch for athletes too. So, some of them are very specific to certain sports, but, being able to perform with confidence and in the zone, like that's a hypnosis audio. So there's all these hypnosis audios, but I also make custom hypnosis audios. So kind of like what I said about VJ, right? I made him his own
mm-hmm.
hypnosis audio. So when I do that for somebody, we have 2 sessions because I need to talk to them, right? I need to understand. And as I already mentioned, I need to know their language. What is it that they want?
Right.
How am I going to make my suggestions believable for them? How am I going to make them so that they want that? Because they got to want to accept it. I'm going to make sure they understand hypnosis and they're going to practice at home, like all that to help to make not only the hypnosis successful, but the suggestions successful. But yeah, it's called custom hypnosis, personalized custom hypnosis audio.
Okay.
Yeah. And I usually, when we recommend that one, it's more like, first of all, nothing else I have would fit that person because I'm going to go there first. Hey, well, that right there, that can be addressed with that. I already got that. Or
Right.
if it's more conscious level, like I worry too much, I'm constantly second guessing myself. That's all conscious level. That's not hypnosis. Right. So other than if they have certain beliefs, I'll never be good enough, right? That's a belief. So if
Right.
it's conscious level, then I'm going to point towards my online course. If it's subconscious, like some kind of belief, or like with VJ, I'll never be able to perform well again. My career's over. That's when the hypnosis is really powerful. So we separate it like that.
Okay. To penetrate that and get underneath of that, I assume, and build and I guess move that out of the way so that it's no longer blocking him from his performance.
Yeah, and sometimes I have clients I work with like over a whole year, and it's part of that package. We're about 3/4 of the way in when I really have a good grip on what's going on with them. That's part of the package to make them a custom audio, and I always say to them, "What else do you want me to throw in? I'll throw in mechanics stuff too, like whatever you want. Throw in life stuff, mechanic. First of all, by then they trust me, they understand. They've already done a ton of other hypnosis. They get it. They see where their hangups are. They see where their beliefs are holding them. Like they get all of it. So I'm like, and so they're ready, right? And like, what do you want me to put in there? So it's clearly whatever hot topic, whatever main issues that they've been having or had since day one. But then, yeah, if it's mechanics related, I want to make sure my body swivels, kind of like when I'm sitting in, an office chair. Like that was something somebody said to me once, and I'm like, okay, good analogy, good visual, and I put it in there like the way that they wanted to hear it.
Okay. You earlier at the very beginning of the conversation, I meant to go back and clarify with you, but you were saying alpha brain waves, beta brain waves, and EKG. Did you mean EEG?
Oh, the ECG, EKG, EEG.
Well, EEG are the stickers on your head that measure brain activity, and EKG is what measures your heart.
Okay. So
So that's
EEG.
okay. All right.
So yeah, sticking to your head.
Gotcha. Yeah, those are, they put like when they monitor kids or typically it's kids. I've not seen them do it with adults, but who have seizure disorders in like a pediatric ICU, they'll do an EEG on them, especially when they're in what we call a status epilepticus, which is a constant seizure state,
Oh,
where
yeah.
they can medicate you to where your body can't respond, but literally your brain, even though your body's completely sedated, your brain is still seizing.
Oh, wow.
So
Yes.
they'll put they'll shave the head, put in like 30 cables on, and monitor the EEG, the brain activity.
Wow.
So yeah, it's
Fascinating.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of those, and it's like, man, I cannot imagine that you have to sedate them to the point where their muscles won't respond, but their brain still, even at that level of sedation,
Yeah.
the brain is still firing. That's why I say when you're asleep, you're not asleep. Your
Yeah.
brain is still doing it. Now, it moves into, obviously we know now that, in REM and other things are happening, but your brain is still functioning, while the rest of you is comatose, your brain is doing underlying things. It is amazing how it never stops.
Yeah, and that's your subconscious and unconscious primarily. Your conscious is what's going to what we call sleep. Nothing else is like your heart, physical. Like your heart's not sleeping, right? But
Right.
neither is your subconscious.
It does
mind.
slow down. Yeah.
Yeah, your
Hopefully.
your subconscious isn't sleeping. Your unconscious isn't sleeping, but your conscious is the only thing that's doing this process and going into what we call sleep. It's like putting your computer
Right.
into sleep mode, right? It's still running.
Correct.
It's instead of powering off. Yeah.
Yeah. And ESPN is still running ads when your
Yeah.
laptop is in sleep mode. You can hear it. You're like,
idle.
what is talking?
Yeah, it's like idle mode. Yeah.
Yeah,
You're in idle
yeah.
mode when you're sleeping. Yeah.
All right. I have a few questions left, and then I want to ask you about your book and your other stuff. Have you ever had a client that you were unable to help for whatever reason?
Only if they have their own resistance,
Okay.
right? So if they are just petrified of hypnosis and nothing
Triggered
I say is
again.
going to convince them, nothing. Or they really don't want, they're not there because they want to be there. They're there because somebody else told them to be there. Those are the times. And so I do
Okay.
everything I can to try to avoid that. I don't want my time wasted either, right? But that's it.
Yeah.
Anybody else, if they're on board and they're, especially if they're fascinated, because that's just a little bit more than on board, right? Like, this is cool. This is it. I love this. They're going to do great. They're going to do great.
Just out of curiosity, and I don't know why, I don't know where this comes from. Maybe it's the analytical mind part of me, but what % of your clients prefer to remain anonymous?
A huge percentage. It's funny because since April, I've succeeded at viral content on social media, which was deliberate. I learned how to try to make that happen through courses and training and everything. And I succeeded on this called Clay Shooting Mind Game Mondays. And but by doing that, it's like some of my videos are getting 180,000 views, and others are, they come out every Monday and they can have 40 to 60,000 views. But that's all over the world, right? So
Right.
what's been kind of funny since that's happened is people who have never heard of me before, never seen me, never, they're messaging on different platforms and being like, is this lady real? Has she ever really worked with anybody? I Google her, but all I see is all her stuff. Like, I don't see anybody testimonials like from somebody else. And I was like, dang it, it's so true. And it's so frustrating because especially the competitive person, they don't want anybody else knowing their secret weapon.
Right.
It is
Right.
something I've seen over and over and over again. They'll say to me, I love this. This has changed my life and my shooting. This is the most amazing thing. I will definitely do your testimonial, but I want to wait till make sure it lasts. I'm like, okay, whatever. Whatever. You got 6 months of doing great, but you want to make sure it lasts before you say anything. Yeah, there's so many different things. There's different factors. But I think the biggest one working with competitive people is they don't want anybody else knowing
I also feel there's two parts here. It's either, and it could be a combination of the two. It could be one, I don't want people to know, I want to have a competitive advantage. But two, it's like some people might look at it like, I don't want people to think that I'm weak because I'm going to
The
somebody.
stigma.
Yeah, exactly.
I know. One
It's
of
no
these
different
days
than,
we'll get past that, hopefully.
I wonder, I really wonder.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's the unfortunate
I think
part.
it's a human trait.
Yeah. It's so funny because for me, everything I teach is so like duh, Well, we all could use this. There's nothing wrong with you wanting to get better as a person. Like
Right.
it's um it's so normal in my world at this point that every once in a while I forget that other people it's not normal for them, especially the hypnosis. I can see by
Right.
the way some people will look at me or they'll walk around, you know, I the I might offer a free event and somebody's in the back of the group, with the arms crossed and just looking at me like, sure, but they're wanting to scope it out. A few months ago, I was hired to go to Michigan for a ladies' annual trap event. So it was trap shooting. And with trap shooting, the only way you're going to win is you have to break 25 straight over and over again. And even in shoot off, like
Mm,
that's the level that it's evolved
wow.
to over the years. You have to, you can't miss a target. If you miss one target, you're out.
You're done.
And so, and that again goes all the way into the shoot off. So you've got to be able to perform under different pressures and hold it together and do well. So, um, I don't work as much with trap shooters. So I was at this event. I did a speaking engagement, and there's about 50 people in the room. At the very beginning, I say, "How many of you believe in the mental game?" And every single one of them enthusiastically put up their arm. Then I was like, "What?" Because I'm used to skepticism. I'm used to people, looking at me funny if because of hypnosis or whatever reasons, or not wanting to admit that they know, that I'm helping them. Every single one of them, and they were nodding and they were smiling, and the whole time I talked, they were loving it, and I was like, "What in the world?" And I talked to the head of it afterwards, and she was like, "Well, every trap shooter knows there's a mental game because they already know they've got the mechanics. You can't shoot 25 straight without mechanics. It, it's
Correct.
it's they know probably better than other shotgun sports because of the nature of what the sports become." And I was like, I love that. That is cool. So I'm not used to it.
Right. That's a different level of enthusiasm right there.
Yeah. Talk about belief system. You got to believe it and then it's going to help them. Right. So, that's great. The more somebody's interested, believes it, open, the higher I feel too, because I'm like, this person's gonna fly, and I'm gonna watch them, and I love that.
Well, yeah, like you said, they have that. It's like that grandmaster I was talking about. They have the skill to hit all 25 in a row. That's not their problem. Now they want to learn mentally how to do that over 50, over 75, over 100, where they can consistently do it without fail.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
that is the mental part.
Yes. Yeah.
So your book, 7 Strokes in 7 Days,
Yes.
is that
7 strokes, and so it was written for golfers. At the time, I was working a lot more with PGA Tour pros than any other sport, but it's applicable to every sport, as you can see from this conversation. Everything I'm saying
Yeah.
is applicable to every human, really. And yeah, it's a mini version of 7 of my lessons, but I have 21 lessons total. But it's a little mini version of that, and I've had some really great feedback on it.
Okay. I do feel like that it's interesting you have day 2 relax. It's going to get better as a chapter. And I feel like that is probably the one thing that most athletes probably have to learn and realize and understand.
Again, going back to another golf example, when I first started working with some of the PGA guys, the kind of rumor was getting around, who I was and what I do and such like that. And I had about 24 pros I was working with at the time. And, I'd see other pros. Again, it's like Tuesday or Wednesday, right? There's hardly any spectators. I'm there, I'm talking to different pros while they're practicing. And on two different occasions, there was these two different pros that said to me, well, if what you're doing is helping with relaxation and being more calm, then it's not for me because I like it when I get mad. I perform better when I'm pissed off and I come at it, And the first time that was said to me, it threw me off because I wasn't expecting it. But then I processed it, right? And then I got better at it. To the next person that said it to me. And so if you think of more like kind of a timeline, so what they're saying is when I get mad, I perform better. But what's between I got mad and I perform better? There's something there, and the something there is I'm more engaged, I'm more present, I'm I am more deliberate, I'm more like they're not, everything's disappearing around them, right? They're bringing themselves into that, and that's really what's happening. And they don't need anger to bring themselves into that present moment peak self scenario. You don't need anger to do that. They were using anger to do it, but you don't need anger to do that.
Yeah, it was almost like they're using anger to get focused on what they need to do.
Yeah. But we all can have better focus.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. That's wild. That's what. Interesting. Okay.
I've heard so many interesting things. Yeah, there's this.
And I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Say.
I was just going to say there was speaking of wild kind of things, there was this one guy, he said, I don't want to be in the top 10. He was a PGA Tour pro. I said, I don't want to be in the top 10. I was like, well, why? He said, well, I don't want my life to be, and this was a bit back. I don't want my life to be like Tiger Woods. I don't want to have to eat inside the kitchen of a restaurant. And I was like, okay, well, that's interesting, but dang. So what is your goal? Because I got to help you fulfill it, right? I got to figure out with you where you want to go.
Right.
But
he wants to be 11th.
I don't know, right? They put a cap on it. Yeah. Interesting.
But even then, like, I know who Sergio Garcia is. I watched it. Like, I probably the only one I would really recognize and know for sure, like without question. I'm like, oh, that's John Daly. Let me go shake his hand, but I'm not going to bug him. I'm just going to walk by.
Yeah.
And politely shake his hand and move along. But I think sometimes these guys think that too, maybe this goes back to ego, that they're going to, everybody's going to know who they are and not leave them alone. Unless you're at the level of a Tiger Woods, who he was raised above even, normal champions. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was something really fascinating that I observed with that, because it really bothered me when VJ didn't follow up, and then he got ugly about it too. Like he made accusations as to why I was coming to his events. He tried to downplay why I was there and that I had even helped him, and it was pretty ugly. Fortunately, his sponsors, caddies, trainer, everybody knew I'd helped him and they were supportive, but he went to some extremes to try to make sure people didn't know I had helped him. And it hurt my feelings, as you could imagine. And I spent several days doing some soul searching, like, what am I doing working with these people? And the ego, especially in golf, and you can definitely correct me if I'm wrong, I've not seen this as much in any other sport, but when I would drive into town, whatever town they're going to be in, for a good week or 2 or 3 or maybe a month, their face was on a billboard. One billboard per top golfer. Like, their face is on a billboard. Everything said they're coming to town. You show up there, you have to stay behind these ropes So like, like a zoo, right? You're behind these ropes. You can't touch them. If you possibly get close, you maybe ask them for their autograph. They might not give it to you, but because, I was with several of them, they would get cars provided to them, typically like, a Porsche or something like that. And it would have a magnet or wording on the side that said PGA Tour Pro and their name, right? And that's what they drove around town. And they'd show up at a restaurant and everything cleared out for them. Wait staff fell over themselves to wait on them. And, half the restaurant was emptied so they could have it to themselves. Like I watched all this stuff happen, and girls would fall at their feet, be sitting there having dinner with a pro and whoever else was with them, and just random females coming over and hitting on them all night long. And so,
Wow.
You think about something like basketball, it's just, I haven't seen it to the same degree as I've seen it on the PGA Tour Pro. And it's highly likely then that their egos are being fed over and over and over again. And, that becomes a bit tricky.
Well, and I think if you look at the other sports again, like, you have your Michael Jordans, your Steph Currys, your LeBron James, who will be recognized. But I would say 95% of basketball players would not be recognized other than like, man, that dude's tall,
right
out and about. Other than that, you're like, I don't, unless you're an avid fan of said sport. I mean, like, look at football. Most of those guys, they take their helmet off and they're like, oh, that's not who I pictured that would be, so I would never recognize them out and
here
about.
It was like multiple days where they're behind these ropes for all day long. So you think about a basketball or a baseball game or football, you might be in the stadium bleachers, but it's just not the same. And then they would go to the next town the next week and have all that happen again, over and over and over again. Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to side with the guy who doesn't want to be top 10.
Right. You see it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. He's got a point here. I don't know that I can argue with him.
Yeah. It's really interesting.
So if someone were from the shooting world come and say, I want some training, are you directing them to the website, or how would they go about seeking out? I mean, I have your information on the screen. So if they watch the video, they'll see dongrant.com, info@dongrant.com, phone number.
Yeah. So every single one. So I have 6 different online courses. The one for the folks that would be listening on here, if they consider themselves athletic, it would be the athletes. What is it? Optimal athlete mental game online course or something like that. But the free webinars are where I tell everybody to start. Unless right now they're like, you know what, I love this, I'm on board. Then they're gonna go ahead and just go to it says start here, and there's a drop down, and there's like stress-free mindful living program. There's athletes, there's golf, there's clay shooting, there's success like executives, and there's weight loss and wellness. So those are the 6 categories. And so if they just click on one of those, like the athlete page, then it's going to show every product and service I have for athletes, including the online course. And then near the top, there's the free webinar if they want to learn a little bit more, although we've covered a lot. So I don't know how much more they'd want to learn, but you never know.
Right. Well, I mean, it may just help them determine more clearly what they're looking to get. So,
yeah.
But I clicked on the free on your website. And I scrolled down and I see you've got the zone. So the athlete's ideal mindset, that would be one. Health, mind, and body, that would be one. Peak human performance, that would be huge.
Are you talking about hypnosis audios?
It's just, I clicked on, it's at the top, it says free. I clicked on that and it says your journey starts today, free stuff, complimentary products and services.
Yeah.
And I scrolled down and it's, you've got the mental training and hypnosis meditation, join free.
Right.
Mind mastered custom hypnosis meditation app, 1 week free.
Yes.
And then Below that, you've got another Dialogue with Dawn, join free, Mental Training on Demand, 1 week free. And then
Yes.
there are subcategories. And that's where I'm seeing those might not be free. I don't know. But
Those are
I
the
mean, those,
webinars. Yep. Those are the
okay,
webinars. Yep. Those are all
those are
free.
definitely, those three right there are big. So,
Yeah. So people can find that either from the menu like you did at dawngrant.com, or it's dawngrant.com/free.
and I'll put a link in the description of the show so people can just click on that and go there.
Perfect.
I'll take them right to the free section, and then from there they can navigate the rest of the site if they want.
Awesome. That's exactly where I'd suggest they go.
Okay. All right. So that's what we'll do then, because I know that I do believe that there has to be some type of mental training, no different than, when you're learning your skills, most people don't learn all their skills by themselves. They have to go to somebody who can teach them, and then they can learn as they're taught,
Right.
and then a lot of these guys will teach them how to analyze their own shooting so that they can improve it, teach them how to train, which is critical. And then you can do more stuff on your own. But the mental side of it, there are a few people, but not that many that, have really done it. And especially from someone who has trained people across multiple sports that understand it's not just the event. It's like you said, the brain is the brain is the brain. So it's training the brain.
Absolutely. Definitely. Well, I'd love to help your listeners. So it makes me happy to help people. So the more I can help, especially when they start seeing really great results in their life and in their sport or whatever, it's awesome. I love it.
Except for the angry guy. I want to be bad.
Right.
Oh, goodness. Well, Dawn, I appreciate you coming on. Was there anything that we didn't talk about that you want to mention before we close this thing down?
No, I think we did a pretty great job. Thank you.
I agree.
Really
Thank you.
enjoyed it. Good
That's
conversation.
quite enlightening.
Thanks.
Yes.